Hi all you music makers out there, I'm James Russell and these are my 6 studio hacks to getting good vocals. Now some of you may know these, some of you may not, but these are what I use to get the absolute best out of my vocalists and the best results when recording vocals. They can work in a studio or they can work at home. So here we go, roll the tape. So when in doubt, do a shootout. Now at the moment I've got a condenser mic, large diaphragm condenser, and a Shure SM7. The reason why is they're two different extremes for vocals. The dynamic mic will sort of pick up less and a smaller bandwidth. This is super sensitive and pick up a great range. So if you want to try and test them, I find also they can sum really well together. So you can do a dynamic mic and a condenser, or 2 condensers to test your vocal tone. This is an 87 and a 47. I find they really sum well together as well. Tip number 2, know when to use a dynamic mic. A dynamic mic, like this one, essentially is passive, which means it takes more SPL to move the diaphragm, and thus is slower in response than something like a condenser mic. Now this can actually work in your favour. Say you've got a vocalist who's a little bit shaky and you've got a condenser on them, that large diaphragm condenser and the fact of how absolutely sensitive that diaphragm is, may be picking up too much variation in the tuning of that vocalist. It'll make them sound unconfident and out of tune. In that situation, something like a 57 or an SM7, a dynamic mic, will work in your favour, essentially because the condenser's diaphragm acts like a mini compressor. So it'll even out the tuning and make them sound a little more confident. You'll have to get a bit more gain, but you'll soon find out that it works quite well. Also, tracking with a compressor is another important thing. You've got to remember, compression is your friend if it's done the right way. Yes, it can squeeze in bad frequencies, but if you put a late attack and a really fast release, it'll be generally transparent and just tame the peaks for you. But what it does for a vocalist is indispensable. It can make them sound confident and strong in their delivery. Following on from tracking with a compressor, using a limiter non-destructively will also make them sound more confident. But it means you can also squeeze it a little bit harder without being destructive to the audio file. So that's why you do it inside your door and make sure it's non-destructive and make sure you've got pre-fader monitoring. There's nothing like a bit of reverb. If you can do it non-destructively and just put it in their monitoring, I find that there's nothing that can help even out the tuning of a vocalist performance than reverb in their cans. Try and put a heap on so they can even out their tuning, but not enough to get in their way. My 6th and final tip, and it also goes to monitoring. A vocalist can often put themselves out of tune when they've got both headphones on. So a good little studio trick, and you'll often see the pros do it, is pull one little bit of the headphone off the ear so they can hear themselves pitch in the room. This way they won't put themselves out of pitch and they'll get a greater gauge as to how they sound as well as how they sound in the monitors. The latency or numerous other aspects can make the vocalist go out of tune. So pull the headphone off a little bit and track your way to vocal success. So that's been my 6 tips. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, or drop me a line if you want me to cover a subject. I'm James Russell and you've been watching Studio Hacks.